On the day we got our marriage license, Sonia Gray told me that if we ever slept in separate rooms for more than a week, it meant we had silently agreed to divorce. Every time we got into a fight, she would grab her pillow and run to the other room. And every time I was the one who had to back down, lower my head and apologize. She used that threat to keep me wrapped around her pinky for 3 years. It was my 28th birthday. Once again, she missed our date because of the intern at her workplace. She came home. She extended diamond cuff links to me. I did not take it. Sonia frowned at me for a while before saying coldly, "You have a birthday every year. He doesn't get a second life." I came back as fast as I could after taking Chris to the hospital. "Stop throwing a tantrum. How controlling can you be? You're a monster." She went right into the guest room. This time I did not go after her. Sonia slammed the door shut like usual. Of course, she did it on purpose. She wanted me to give in and ask for peace. But this time I stayed seated, quiet as stone. I did not cry or become anxious like I used to. I was tired of living life this way. I did nothing wrong. But every time I was forced to beg for forgiveness, the air conditioning was turned up high, but the ice cream cake on the coffee table was still beginning to melt. Just like this marriage, no matter how much I tried, the cracks never healed. Instead, they grew bigger and more numerous. I scooped up a small dollop of ice cream and put it into my mouth. The sweetness did nothing to wash away the bitterness flooding my heart. We had been married for 3 years. In the first year, she stayed at her company, helping Chris Shaw amend his proposal while leaving me alone on my birthday. She went to the neighboring city with Chris on a work trip. That day had also been my birthday. Now, she left me alone, standing in the rain just because Chris called her over. I was staring blankly into space when the guest room door suddenly opened. She approached me, and my heart skipped a beat. A bit of ice cream stuck to the corners of my mouth. Sonia let out a resigned sigh and wiped it off with a tissue. "I'm sorry, honey. I didn't mean what I said. Yes, I know you hate it when I get too close. I'll try my best to keep communication with Chris strictly tied to work." All the unfairness and hurt I had kept bottled up suddenly surged to the surface. My eyes reddened for the first time in 3 years. She was the one taking a step back. Before I could even voice how happy I was, someone took a picture of me sending Chris to the hospital and sent it to the work chat. "Everyone's calling Chris a homewrecker. He's sick. You shouldn't be dragged into this. I'd like you to clear his name." So much for her taking the first step. So much for feeling moved. She would throw me under the bus again and again for Chris. And now she had only lowered herself to apologize because of him. 4 or 5 years, I had poured my heart into loving this woman. Now I laughed in her face. She took that as a yes. "You're the best, honey. I'll add you into the group once you clear his name. You can apologize where everyone can see it." So I cut her off. "Don't even think about it." She froze. The tender expression she had a moment ago vanished, replaced by exasperation. "We're innocent, Quincy. Why do you keep going after him? This rumor can very well ruin his life. He's just an intern straight out of college." The poor boy was crying his eyes out on the phone. I shot up from my seat and met her eyes. "I'm not interested in Chris's life. Spare me the report, and I'm not going to clear his name either." My fists were clenched and my emotions were close to spilling over, but I held them in and kept my voice level. Sonia let out a mirthless laugh. "I'm staying at the company. If you still think you're a man, don't even try to talk to me." The door was slammed shut again. Something invisible squeezed around my heart, and the pain nearly stole my breath. Then my phone buzzed. I thought it was Sonia. Instead, it was a message from Chris. "Miss Gray took me to the hospital because I had a paper cut. Don't read too much into that. Only insecure guys are paranoid about everything." I stared at the screen for a few quiet moments. I did not text back or delete the message. Sonia kicked me out of her car and left me stranded in the downpour. For Chris, I thought he had suffered a near-fatal injury. In the end, it was nothing but a paper cut. When I had appendicitis and the pain had kept me curled up in bed, I had asked her to bring me some water. Back then, she had called me a pampered prince. A bitter smile curled my lips. It was obvious who Sonia truly loved, even if they had never crossed that final line. She didn't come home for the next 3 days. I did not sit around waiting either. I started packing my things up bit by bit. This house belonged to her even before we were married. Of course, I was the one moving out. On the 4th day of our separation, my friend asked me out for some fun. I used to say no to them since I had to stay home and wait for Sonia. This time I said yes immediately. For the first time in forever, I finally had an outing. And just my luck, I ran into the 2 people I least wanted to see. Sonia's eyes lit up for a moment, but then it was replaced by disdain. "Round, you came all the way here. God, you're an embarrassment." I was about to retort when Chris mocked. "Oh, don't be so harsh. He just doesn't want the divorce to go through. There are only 3 days left, after all." Then he turned to me. "You're embarrassing us, man, bro. If it were me, I'd wait until day 7 before talking to Miss Gray." Their friends played along. "Miss Gray has her husband wrapped right around her pinky. Take some notes, people." The praise was stroking Sonia's ego. Well, she spoke to me as if she were granting me mercy. "I get it. I'll be home tonight. Leave. You're ruining the vibes." That was not the first time she had said something like that. I used to think nothing of it, but now for some reason, I hated that tone. I looked at Sonia's smug expression and said coldly, "I couldn't care less. Even if you wanted to stay at your company forever. And I'm here for something else." I went around them and kept walking into the club. My response surprised them enough to leave them frozen. but Chris snapped out of it first and grabbed my wrist. Stop pushing your luck, Chris. She's already going home tonight. I don't want to get the brunt of your fury when she gets angry. You'd love it if we got divorced, Chris. It'd be the perfect opening for you. Cut your crap acting. It's disgusting. I flung Chris's hand away. It was barely a push, but Chris let out a scream, dramatic enough to shame a ghost, and stumbled backward. He did not fall to the ground. Instead, he fell straight into Sonia's arms. His eyes reddened, and he put on a wounded pout. I think I should quit my job, Miss Gray. Everyone's calling me a homewrecker behind my back because Quincy thinks I am, and now he's hitting me. Thank God our colleagues aren't here. But what if she comes after me at work? Sonia's expression darkened like a storm. She held Chris tightly in her arms and glowered at me. Apologize to him right now, she demanded. I met her eyes without backing down. Not happening. Her lips pressed into a thin, straight line. Do you apologize, or we're done? I had already checked out of this marriage, but hearing those words straight from her still shook me. For a moment, I did not let it show. Instead, I sneered. My mood had been ruined. I did not want to bring that energy to my friend's outing. So I went straight home. That little episode left me thinking I might not get any sleep, but instead, I slept soundly. When morning came, I woke up only to see Chris in my house. For a second, I wondered if I had woken from one dream into another. Chris had only a towel wrapped around his waist. The rest of him was bare as he wandered around the house. Sonia was in the kitchen making oatmeal. It was unimaginable, given that she never did any chores. The sounds of me walking downstairs drew their attention. Sonia frowned, but said nothing. Chris quickly explained, it's not what you think. I drank too much and threw up everywhere. I lost my keys too, so Miss Gray had no choice but to bring me here. I snickered. No choice. I think she very much loved taking you home. Sonia slammed her ladle back into the cauldron and swiveled around. She stared at me, her voice filled with impatience. Stop while you're ahead, Quincy. What a joke. She had brought another man home. Yet I was the one going too far. The audacity was almost impressive. She thought she could do this only because I held deep love for her. Anyone who loved her, even a little less, would have left. The moment she came up with that silent divorce threat, I thought love and acceptance would return to me in the same magnitude. But I had forgotten one thing. Bowing to her again and again would only make her think less of me. My silence stretched, and Chris bit his lip. Sorry for this, Miss Gray. I think I should leave. He pretended to move toward the door. Sonia grabbed his hand before he could even turn. But you're barely wearing anything. What if you run into the wrong sort? I'll take you home after breakfast, after your clothes are dried. She turned to me again, her impatience nearly dripping from every word. First thing in the morning, and you're ruining everyone's day. Sometimes I wish I never married you. Silence crashed into the room like a mountain. It did not take long for Sonia to realize she had gone too far. Sonia opened her mouth, but I refused to give her time for any explanation. Icily, I said, that makes two of us. Sonia, you two stay. I'll leave. I went upstairs and came back down 10 minutes later with my luggage in tow. Sonia's eyes narrowed. Something close to delight flickered in Chris's eyes, but he quickly covered it with an innocent expression. You don't have to do this, Quincy. She's just my boss, nothing more. I had nowhere to go and nothing to change into. She only took me in out of charity. I would have ignored him, but Chris had pushed his sickening little act too far, so I snapped at him. Chapter 4, Arrogant Fool. Oh please. You had more places to go than you could possibly choose from. Empire has enough hotels for you to stay in a different one for the rest of your life. You could have bought fresh clothes from any random mall. Yet here you are, half naked in another man's wife's house. Chris froze up. He had no comeback. So he immediately looked at Sonia like an injured puppy begging for help. Quincy, I shut her down before she could start. Shut up. I don't want to hear your voice. With that, I left. 3 days passed, then a full week. After that, I checked out of the room and grabbed a ride to the airport. Sonia was in a meeting, but her mind was somewhere else. She was restless, checking her phone again and again. Still, there was no news from me. She had been waiting for days. After what felt like an eternity, the meeting finally came to an end. The first thing she did after coming out was turning her attention to the reception room, but it was empty. The old me would have begged for reconciliation in less than 3 days. Now a full week had passed, and I had not made a single move. She wondered if I was really mad this time. She thought it was just a birthday. In her mind, I was overreacting over something that came around every year. Then something hit her, and her eyes narrowed. She had missed my birthday 3 years in a row, and every single time it had been because of Chris. That answered her question. A sliver of guilt crept into her heart. She knew she had gone too far, so she texted me. I'll take you to the beach once I'm done with work. You've always wanted to have a vacation there. The message failed to send. I had blocked her. A frown creased her forehead. She quickly called me, but only a detached, automated voice answered. I had blocked her number too. The air in the office turned a few degrees colder. She was about to ask her assistant to find out which hotel I had been staying at when the assistant came in first. Miss Gray, a file from Mr. Mallard. Sonia's frown smoothed out, and her mood buoyed. And I thought he had grown a spine in the end. He's begging me anyway, but he's an understanding man. I can let this tantrum slide, get a watch from a jewelry store, and book a reservation at that fancy restaurant on the west side. Her words died in her throat the moment she saw what was inside the file. Sonia's confident smile disappeared. The document in her hands wasn't a letter begging for forgiveness. It was a divorce agreement. At the bottom was Quincy's neat signature. Along with it was a property division agreement. He wanted nothing from her. Not the house. Not the car she had bought him. Not even the expensive watch she had given him on their second anniversary. The only request was a single sentence. Please return the wedding ring to the enclosed box. Sonia stared at the page as if she had forgotten how to breathe. Impossible. She flipped through the rest of the documents. Every page had already been signed. The attorney had even attached a note. Mr. Mallard has requested that all communication regarding the divorce be handled through our office. Her fingertips slowly tightened around the papers. No. Her assistant cautiously spoke. Miss Gray, there's more. He handed over a small envelope. Inside was a photograph. Their wedding day. Only now, Quincy had carefully cut himself out of the picture. The remaining half showed only Sonia standing alone in her wedding dress. On the back, Quincy had written one sentence. You said 7 days apart meant we silently agreed to divorce. This time, I'm simply honoring your rule. The office became deathly quiet. Chris had just arrived outside the meeting room, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He smiled brightly. Miss Gray, I bought your favorite. Get out. He blinked. Miss Gray, I said get out. Her voice was so cold that everyone in the office froze. Chris had never seen her lose control before. He quietly backed away. Sonia grabbed her car keys and rushed downstairs. She drove straight home. The house was silent. For the first time in 3 years. No one greeted her at the door. No warm slippers had been prepared. No dinner waited on the table. The living room looked strangely empty. She walked upstairs. Quincy's closet was empty. His toothbrush, gone. His favorite coffee mug, gone. Even the little cactus he had insisted on keeping by the bedroom window had disappeared. The only thing left was the wedding ring resting inside a velvet box. Underneath it lay a handwritten note. You once asked why I always apologized first. Because I loved you. You asked why I kept waiting for you every night. Because I loved you. You asked why I tolerated Chris over and over. Because I loved you. But love runs out. Take care of yourself. There wasn't a single accusation. No insults. No bitterness. Just goodbye. For the first time since they met, Sonia panicked. She immediately called everyone she knew. Have you seen Quincy? No. Did he contact you? No. She called his parents. Nothing. His college roommate. Nothing. Even his old basketball teammates. Nobody knew where he had gone. Only then did she realize he had quietly removed himself from every part of her life before handing her those papers. He had planned this. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, Quincy stepped out of the airport. Warm ocean air brushed against his face. He inhaled deeply. It was the first breath that hadn't felt heavy in years. His phone vibrated. It was his attorney. Mr. Mallard, the papers have been delivered. Quincy looked toward the endless blue sea. I know. Mrs. Gray has already called the office 17 times. He chuckled faintly. Forward everything to voicemail. What if she refuses to sign? Quincy looked at the waves. She won't. Why are you so sure? He smiled sadly. Because she loves winning. If refusing means admitting she lost me, she'll sign. He hung up. For the first time in years, he watched the sunset without checking his phone every 5 minutes. Without wondering where Sonia was. Without wondering if Chris had called again. His life had finally become his own. Back in the city, however, Sonia sat alone in the empty house, clutching the returned wedding ring so tightly it left marks in her palm. Only now, when there was no one left waiting for her, did she understand something she had ignored for years. Chris had always been the center of her attention. Quincy had always been the one quietly holding everything together. She had believed he would never leave. And now, he already had. The next morning, Sonia walked into the office with dark circles under her eyes. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Quincy's note. Love runs out. She had dismissed those words at first. Now they echoed in the empty house. The receptionist stood up nervously. Good morning, Miss Gray. She gave a distracted nod before heading toward her office. Halfway there, she noticed people whispering. Their conversations stopped the moment she looked over. She ignored it until she reached her assistant. Cancel my afternoon schedule. The assistant hesitated. Miss Gray, the board meeting with the Morrison Group is this afternoon. Cancel it. Yes. He paused before adding carefully. There's something else. What? The HR department completed the internal review you requested. Sonia frowned. What review? The one regarding the rumors about Mr. Chris Shaw. She had almost forgotten. After Quincy left, she had ordered HR to investigate, partly to silence the gossip and partly to prove Quincy's suspicions were baseless. The assistant handed her a thick folder. She opened it. The first few pages contained witness statements. Several employees admitted that Chris constantly sought opportunities to be alone with Sonia. He would intentionally wait until everyone else left before asking her for help. He often exaggerated minor injuries to gain sympathy. One co-worker even wrote, Mr. Shaw once bragged that Miss Gray would drop everything if he called. We all thought he was joking. Sonia's brows knitted together. She flipped another page. Security footage logs. On Quincy's birthday, Chris had indeed gone to the hospital. Diagnosis. A superficial paper cut requiring only cleaning and a small bandage. Estimated treatment time. 7 minutes. Sonia stared at the report. 7 minutes. She remembered leaving Quincy alone with his birthday cake. She remembered telling him, he doesn't get a second life. A bitter laugh escaped her lips. She had treated a paper cut as though it were a life or death emergency. Another page. Internal chat records. Chris had privately messaged several co-workers before the hospital visit. Miss Gray insists on coming with me, faced with tears of joy. Watch. She'll cancel whatever she's doing. Timestamp. 23 minutes before he called her. Her fingers tightened around the folder. He had planned it. Another attachment followed. A security recording from the company's lobby. Chris stood outside the building, perfectly fine. He looked at the tiny cut on his finger, squeezed out a drop of blood, then dialed Sonia. Moments later, she came rushing downstairs, panic written all over her face. She grabbed his arm and hurried him to the car. Chris smiled the moment she wasn't looking. The smile vanished as soon as she turned back. Sonia felt sick. For the first time, she saw the performance Quincy had endured for years. Just then, there was a knock. Chris walked in carrying coffee. He wore his usual innocent smile. Miss Gray, I heard you skipped breakfast, so I closed the door. He smiled, unaware. Of course. The click of the door echoed through the room. Sonia calmly slid the folder across the desk. Explain. Chris glanced at the first page. His smile faltered. I don't understand. You don't. She tapped the printed screenshots. You scheduled your own hospital visit. You lied to me. You mocked my husband behind my back. His face paled. I can explain. And the rumors? I never. You told people he was abusive. I didn't say. You implied it. Chris's breathing became uneven. Miss Gray, I only wanted people to misunderstand a little. I never expected Quincy to leave you. Sonia's expression froze. You expected him to stay. Chris lowered his head. Yes. The room fell silent. After a long pause, Sonia asked quietly, did you ever care what this would do to my marriage? Chris didn't answer. His silence was answer enough. Sonia closed the folder. I'll have HR process your termination today. Chris's head shot up. What? You heard me. His voice rose in panic. You can't fire me. I didn't do anything illegal. You manipulated your supervisor. You damaged another employee's reputation. You created a hostile workplace. She pressed the intercom. Security. Chris hurried around the desk. Miss Gray, I only did it because I like you. She looked at him without emotion. I know. Isn't that enough? No. Security entered moments later. Chris struggled as they escorted him toward the door. He shouted desperately, Quincy never appreciated you the way I do. Sonia didn't even look up. The office door closed. Silence returned. She leaned back in her chair. She had gotten rid of the person everyone thought stood between her and Quincy. Yet, there was no relief. Only an unbearable emptiness. She picked up her phone again and stared at Quincy's blocked contact. For the 100th time, she whispered into the silence. Come home. But there was no one left to hear her. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. Sonia signed the papers herself. Not because she wanted to, because Quincy never showed up. He didn't argue over money. Didn't fight for property. Didn't ask for alimony. He simply disappeared from her life. The judge looked at her. Mrs. Gray, are you certain? Her voice was hoarse. Yes. The gavel fell. Just like that, her marriage ended. Meanwhile, Quincy had started over in a coastal city several provinces away. He rented a small apartment overlooking the sea and accepted a position as a senior architect at a renowned design firm. His co-workers knew nothing about his failed marriage. To them, he was simply the calm, reliable newcomer. For the first time in years, he had hobbies again. Morning runs, photography, weekend sailing lessons. He laughed more in 3 months than he had in the previous 3 years. Sonia wasn't doing nearly as well. She unconsciously bought 2 cups of coffee every morning. Only after reaching her office did she remember there was no husband waiting to drink the second one. She'd cooked dinner, then realized nobody was coming home. She'd unlock the front door and instinctively call, Honey, I'm home. Silence answered every time. One evening, she found a dusty storage box while cleaning. Inside were dozens of birthday gifts, each one carefully wrapped. Every tag read, for Sonia. She frowned. She didn't remember receiving them. Then she looked at the dates. Year 1, Year 2, Year 3. Each gift had been bought weeks before her birthday. Each year, she had been too busy with work, or Chris, to celebrate. Quincy had quietly stored them away after she canceled. At the bottom of the box lay a notebook. She opened it. Inside were pages filled with plans. Take Sonia to the beach. Learn to make strawberry cake because she likes it. Save enough money for our anniversary trip to Iceland. Maybe next year she'll finally have time. The final entry stopped her cold. If she misses my birthday again, I'll let her go. The date matched his 28th birthday. The tears she had been holding back for months finally fell. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, unstoppable tears. She realized something devastating. Quincy hadn't left on impulse. He had mourned their marriage long before he walked away. 6 months later, Sonia happened to travel for business. As she walked along the boardwalk after a meeting, someone familiar caught her eye. Quincy. He was laughing, really laughing. Standing beside him was a woman carrying a camera. She wasn't clinging to him. She wasn't flirting. She simply handed him a drink before they continued talking. Sonia froze. She had never seen Quincy smile that freely. For years, his smiles around her had always carried exhaustion. She instinctively stepped forward. Quincy. He turned. Their eyes met. There was surprise. Then, calm. No hatred. No love. Just the indifference reserved for a stranger. Miss Gray. He didn't call her honey. Didn't call her by her first name. Just, Miss Gray. The title hurt more than any insult. How have you been? I'm doing well. And are you? He glanced toward the woman, who waved for him to hurry. My colleague's waiting. He gave Sonia a polite nod. It was nice seeing you. Then he walked away without looking back. Sonia stood rooted to the spot. She finally understood the cruelest part of losing someone. It wasn't when they hated you. It was when they no longer felt anything for you at all. As Quincy disappeared into the sunset with a lightness she had never seen during their marriage, Sonia finally accepted the truth. She had spent years believing he would always come back.